This is breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Ah, coming to you live from the Review-Journal studio. We have some breaking news for you. The Clark County School District has reached a tentative contract agreement with 2 of its bargaining units, including the teachers union. We're about to take you to that news conference to discuss these agreements, and we're expecting to hear from CCSD Superintendent Jesus Jara, along with members of the Clark County School Board and the teachers union. Now, here's what we know so far. One of the tentative agreements is with the Clark County Education Association, which represents around 18,000 licensed teachers. We're also hoping to find out which other bargaining unit has reached a deal with the school district. Typically, these agreements cover things like pay, benefits, and working conditions. CCSD says it'll present the 2 agreements with the school board for approval, but has not given a timeline as for when that will happen. Now, the teachers union would also have to ratify these agreements. This comes as the school board could vote next week on whether or not to replace Superintendent Jara. That's according to an agenda item on the school district's board meeting, slated for next week, Thursday. The item says the board will discuss and possibly take action on terminating Jara's employment agreement. It was brought up at written request of 3 trustees. Now, those trustees were not named. In an email today to the school district staff, Jara said, "The superintendent serves at the pleasure of the board." Jara has been the superintendent since 2018, and his contract is currently set to expire in 2023. Right now, the school district is trying to fill hundreds of vacant positions, including both teachers and support staff, as it deals with the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and changes in student enrollment. Earlier this week, the Clark County School District said it's reassigning as many as 78 employees in what is known as the surplus process. In this process, workers are involuntarily shifted to other campuses or positions if their school has a drop in enrollment. For those of you just joining us, we're waiting for the Clark County School District to announce that it has reached contract agreements with 2 of its bargaining units, including the teachers union. Now let's take a live look at the presser to see where they are. As you can see, they have a microphone and podium set up there. It looks like it hasn't begun just yet, but for now, we'll be leaving you with this live picture.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Todd Story. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Clark County School District, and I would like to introduce Trustee GARCIA Morales, and she will give a few remarks. We'll then go to Superintendent Jara, then to CCEA President NEISESS, and then to Superintendent Jara, then President NEISESS. And then we'll go to questions after that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank all of our employees for their hard work. We know that things have not been easy throughout the pandemic and changes that COVID has forced on all jobs. All of our employees should know that as trustees, we are listening to your concerns and working to address them throughout the negotiation process. The tentative contracts we are talking about here today are just a starting point. We're proud to have these tentative agreements in place, but we're still looking and working towards finalizing agreements with the remaining bargaining units. Every one of our employees plays a key and critical role in protecting and educating our students. I really look forward to continuing our working relationships with all of the bargaining units to improve opportunities for employee and student growth. At this time, I'd like to introduce Superintendent Jara.
What a great Friday afternoon. It's been a great week for the Clark County School District. I just got to tell you before I get into these remarks. So on Thursday, which was yesterday, the Council of Great City Schools, 76 urban districts across the country, recognized and honored our trustee Lola Brooks as a finalist for the Green Gardner Award. So congratulations to Trustee Brooks for her leadership as she represented the Clark County School Districts and was a finalist of 9 across 76 urban districts. I just returned from Washington, D.C., and all of you in the press have been following that the Clark County School District is the home of the 2021 National Teacher of the Year, Juliana Uribe, who we have honored and recognized. So again, this just continues the celebration of what we have here this afternoon. And I couldn't find, as Trustee Garcia Morales, I know negotiations are challenging sometimes, but congratulate and really thank both the negotiating team for the Clark County School District and CCEAs for their leadership and steadfast and really trying to get down to something that we need for our educators. As Trustee Garcia Morales mentioned, what you'll have on Thursday as the board will approve our tentative agreements, not only for CCEA educators, but we'll have the administrators, and then we're looking forward to, under the leadership of Ms. Miller and the negotiating team, to wrap up the other bargaining units as well. But here's where we are today, and really excited to be here because the 18,000 educators in the Clark County School District, really, we all know that the teacher in the classroom is the #1 and the best predictor for student achievement. So for us, doing what we can to really have our educators not only be rewarded, I would say, for what we can within our current budget, but really want to thank CCEA and the Teachers Health Trust as well for coming before the board and presenting and really sharing the status. We work together with the bargaining unit to come to our resolutions because our teachers during this time, our educators that we serve and that we have the honor to employ deserve health care, and so do their families. So it's not perfect, but it really resolves a lot of the anxiety that our educators have. As a matter of fact, I on my way here, I got an email from a teacher and just really the concern and saying, please find a miracle. Well, this is what we have because both parties came together as a team to find the solution for our educators. So there's some accountability and really in working together to share with our board. So I just wanted to thank both teams for coming together as one to address the needs of our teachers. So I want to thank, as I mentioned, our teams and the leadership. So without further ado, I do want to thank and bring up our president for CCA, Marie NEISESS.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jara. So again, my name is Marie NEISESS. I am the president of the Clark County Education Association. And like Dr. Jara and Trustee EVELYN Garcia Morales have stated, this has been a long time coming. There have been a lot of challenges. I appreciate the work that CCSD and CCA and THC have done to come to an agreement. With our partnership, we were able to work through some solutions that will help our educators and their benefits that are negatively impacting them, or that was through the trust. I think one of the major things that we've always seen here in CCSD is a recruitment and retention issue, and I believe that this contract will help in that aspect. Specifically, we have a critical shortage of other licensed professionals, such as psychologists, nurses, social workers, et cetera. And I think part of addressing that is to recruit and retain them here, because our students need those additional services, as well as our special education teachers. Their caseloads have gone up. All educators are working under very challenging conditions. And in order to keep our educators, we need to ensure that we continue to work collaboratively to give them a package that represents what they deserve, that represents their professionalism and the efforts that they put into the teaching profession. I would like to thank the Clark County School District, as well as the trustees, for coming together with us and coming up with some solutions, as well as Dr. Jara for this last effort of some very challenging situations that we've had to face. So I appreciate the efforts that was put in by both the CCA negotiation team as well as the CCSD negotiation team. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. So if we could have the rest of the team join us up here. If you have specific questions, what we're going to do is have each member of the team, if they're specific to the contract, or if you have questions for Superintendent Jara, and then they will each individually be able to respond to those questions. So first question.
So we've heard from a lot of teachers that are concerned about health insurance, of course, is why you big reason why you're here. Can you get into specifics of settling back claims, increasing premiums, things of that nature, things that are actively a concern for teachers at this moment?
So that's a very important concern on our organization's part. I think the agreement that we reach has short-term fixes, solutions, as well as a more strategic solution. In the short term, the agreement is going to provide the type of guardrails as well as revenue to address a backlog of claims that have to be settled upon, as well as moving forward and making sure that each and every educator and their families have access to a continuity of care. Strategically, this is really about a road to recovery, a nonprofit, self-funded plan, having enough of a plan to address the population that we have with safeguards where there's transparency, financial accountability, et cetera. So it's a sustainable plan, and I think this agreement reaches that.
That's the solution. Can anyone go into how the problem occurred? There were teachers that had medical bills that they weren't able to take care of, health insurance. How did that problem come to pass?
So I don't think what we've experienced here is no different than what's occurring nationally in the healthcare industry. 10% of our population draws down around 61% of all costs, so we have a chronically ill population. Notwithstanding that fact, I think a realization had to come to play that said that we have to create the type of health plans that essentially try to manage care rather than enable an ongoing cost of care. And I think that's what's in place now. New plans rolling out, a very specific identified program to do population health management to get a control on that so that the end result is access, quality care, and our educators are healthy.
How long will it actually take for you guys to take care of that backlog? Because there are a lot of teachers who are saying that they haven't been able to see some of their providers because they have these bills that are being stacked up. They need to see a provider right now.
So the backlog will be completed. Well, let me frame it this way. The backlog is ongoing right now, being resolved, and it will be completed with all incurred medical claims prior to July of 2021 by June of 2022. So we're just several months out from having that resolved, but it's being resolved as we speak right now. In terms of any educator facing any kind of collections for claims or whatnot, the trust has acquired a consumer advocate law firm to help process that, to make sure that no educator has to go through that. And those that have gone through it, we're going to provide remedy to it.
For the educators that are watching these streams right now that have unpaid bills, that are concerned about their financial status, what can you say directly to them about when
We're taking care of that as we speak now. I mean, we've had a number that have already been resolved, and there's ones that are in the process of being resolved, and more that we hear about. Obviously, part of this agreement requires mandates as part of this agreement that these issues be resolved in a timely fashion.
Is there a date cut off at all for when these medical bills were incurred? Is it starting at a certain date?
All medical claims that were incurred before July of 2021 are the outstanding claims. Those are the ones that have to be resolved by June of 2022. With that being said, a number of them are being resolved and have been resolved as we speak.
Is this new agreement going to force some of these teachers to get new healthcare providers?
Yes and no. I think one of the things that we're going to recognize is that the market, the healthcare market down here, pays a certain fee for docs, right? And one of the things that the trust was doing was, in some cases, paying 20 to 30% more to a provider than what the market bears. So that's a discussion that the trust is going to have with its provider network. Most of them are clearly going to be still on the network. They currently are. But ones that we can't afford may not be on that network, and we don't anticipate a lot of them being like that.
This question is for anybody that would want to answer it. Is there any other good news outside of medical pay increase? There was mention of a caseload being recognized. Anything to that degree?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Fakisha Miller. Yes, there are lots of great things in this agreement for teachers. One of the greatest concerns that we've had is from our special education teachers and their abilities to complete IEPs. They now have extra time to do that for a compliance rate. Not only is there extra salary, there's steps that occur in this year and next year. Beyond that, I think one of the questions that was asked that wasn't addressed is how the teachers right now, they're listening to these streams, how they should feel and what can they feel from this agreement. It was very, very necessary for CCSD to make sure that our teachers are taken care of. And that includes being involved in litigation through no fault of their own. So in this agreement, there is specifically set aside $5 million to immediately go to help protect those teachers right now. There is a law firm that's involved in working on those collections. Also, and part of the agreement is that that system has to be completely set up and that information has to be disseminated to teachers. There's different timelines, but one is within 30 days, one is within 60 days. So not only is the money coming, there's also going to be a framework in place so that there's direct communication to our teachers about what is going on with these back bills. So it's not only just the matter that there's a money delivery. We wanted to make sure that that money went to the need that was requested, which is immediate financial help for bankruptcies, collections, all of these financial issues that these teachers shouldn't have to fill, and they're dealing with that emotional issue instead of dealing with the children, and they shouldn't be dealing with that. So we want to make sure that not only do they have their benefits, that they know that these benefits are locked down, but the most important thing is that we're not in a cycle every 3 years of going through teachers where their bills aren't paid. So there is a system in place to ensure full transparency, including a yearly state of the trust report where they will come before the board, the THT will come before the board and explain exactly where all the money is, where all the bills are, and so that there's full transparency. So those concerns about that anxiety that's been there and that they haven't had those answers is very, very important to CCSD that we shine a light and let them have that information. The other consideration they should have is that this is their trust. They need to know the information. It needs to be fully transparent. And then they need to make sure that the trust is holding its end of the deal. There's no more missed phone calls. There's no more not answered emails. That there has to be full transparency, and that's done in a timely manner. It's not our 2 or 3 years before we find out there's a problem. Every year that we have to come before they have to come before the board and answer those types of questions.
These sound like ongoing solutions. What are the remaining obstacles?
The remaining obstacles are really time and I think the full scale of how big the problem is. We have 18,000 teachers. We had THT that stopped paying bills. and we don't control the THT. CCSD does not control the trust. And so the other part of the agreement is that there is enough reporting so we can see what's happening in a timely fashion, and then there are defaults. If they don't pay the bills, if we get providers that are behind, those default provisions come into effect, 3 defaults within a 12 major defaults within a 12-month period, and the trust transitions. So this is not we don't need to keep going here again. And we wanted to be very clear that this agreement would make sure that we didn't end up in the same place again.
Is there anything missing from this agreement?
Oh, well, I always have a wish list, but we all make compromises in negotiations. We all make compromises. So I think the biggest concerns have been addressed, especially with regards to the health care. We always have labor issues. We always see things differently. That's the nature of the business. And we can't fix everything in one agreement, and perfection is often ruins the intent of the good. So I think the most important concerns, what's happening with the people in collections to make sure that they have ongoing insurance and that insurance actually does what insurance is supposed to do, which is pay the bills, those concerns have been addressed. And on top of that, I think there are very strong guidelines and transparency so we don't end up here again.
Did you say that there was a salary increase?
Yes, there's a 3% salary increase now. They also have a step increase in year 1 as well as a step increase in year 2.
Any good news for Tier 1 educators?
For?
Tier 1 school educators?
Yes, there is, but it would be in another agreement. So there is hopefully more good news to come. I continue today, had another negotiation session with another one of our unions. Even though we have 6 unions, everybody works together on all of these problems. So some of them we can address with some unions, some we're trying to help in other unions, but I'm very excited about where that contract is going as well. So there is yet more help on the way.
Anything else in this contract about maybe trying to fill some of these positions that you guys have, because it's also stressing teachers out having to have a bigger caseload?
Yes. It's not in this agreement. Well, I guess there's one relief that could be considered in this agreement, which is the additional compensation for those other licensed professionals. Part of the reason that I feel like teachers are really having a hard time right now is that children lost a lot in that year that they were out, and that lack of stability takes time. There's also, I'm sure, extreme emotional experiences that those children went through, and so they need the support of those other licensed professionals so that they can educate children. So with the increased tier system for those other licensed professionals, so we're talking about audiologists, physical therapists, all of the different skill sets that we need to deliver services to our children, they have an enhanced tier payment so that we can recruit new talent and fill those positions. So there is some enhancements that way as well.
So I'm going to add one thing. So recruit and retention for the 5th largest school district isn't going to be resolved solely at the collective bargaining table. There's a national crisis, a shortage of several positions in this industry, licensed professionals, certified staff, et cetera. What we're experiencing here is no different than other school districts are experiencing. The idea behind this agreement, and of course we would have loved to have had more, right, is to try through collective bargaining to address hanging on to those educators so they don't leave this profession, whether they're a school psychologist, a nurse, or a classroom teacher, or a special ed. And hopefully this agreement is a step in the right direction. We know it's not the solution. And if the state is listening, if legislators are listening, if the governor is listening, this is a statewide problem, which requires a statewide solution.
Are you at all concerned that more teachers are going to continue to drop?
No, I was just going to back up and follow up on what Mr. VELLARDITA just mentioned. I mean, as I mentioned that yesterday, as we were honoring, and by the way, I recruited 100 of the best teachers in the country recognized, because they recognized the 2020 and 2021. I recruited them all. I was telling Ms. NEISESS, I said I recruited them all here to come. As the Secretary of Education was there, he recognizes the problem across the country, across the state, and We have to have a really honest conversation about teacher pay, teacher working conditions, because it's not just pay, but it's also class size in this state, and it's how we're funding. We're getting to where we need. We have a long way to go. If you really think about the Council of Great City Schools in the last report highlighted the Clark County School District the year before the pandemic as the lowest funded urban school system in the country. So to follow up on what Mr. VELLARDITA just mentioned, it is not just pay, but it's also working conditions, meaning class size, meaning instructional materials, meaning space, professional development. So it's a whole host of things. This is I would say, the beginning of something that we need to continue up as we're investing in our schools.
This comes directly from teachers. Like was mentioned, the health insurance issues that we're facing are national, not specific to Clark County. But again, this comes directly from teachers. Are they owed an apology for the backlog of pay, for the issues they've run into, for the financial concerns they've had at home? Are they owed an apology?
Well, I'll speak on that. I mean, I think it's clear that no educator should have gone through what they did, nor their families, their dependents, et cetera. And, you know, we're on the road to remedy. And I think we've acknowledged that, and I think that we're dealing with that on a case-by-case basis as well as the scale of this problem. So, yes.
So, and I'll follow up on that, and maybe, because I know when the board was also up, and this is something as we're on our way to get better, to work together with CCEA, but the board was very clear, and so was I and our team. This is not something that our educators needed to be worried about. But we're here today, and there's a collaboration, there's a partnership, and we're seeing, you know, this is something that, as I've inherited a lot of things here in the Clark County School District in the last 3.5 years, I own them now. And as a superintendent, I can tell you that I'm committed, and so is the majority of my board, committed to making sure that we address the needs of our educators. So I knew that question was coming. And I'll tell you, before I answer the question, I am going to tell you this. And I go back to last night because, you know what, I was talking to my mentor, superintendent, and she said, once in a lifetime in a career, you get to publicly, nationally introduce one of your teachers as the best. Enjoy it. And I did. I did last night. And you think about the message and some of the folks what they were saying. Remember, close your eyes, remember your teachers. And I was going through that exercise. I remember Miss Kilbride, my 4th grade teacher, as I was an EL student learning to speak the language in this country. And then I remembered my senior teacher, Miss Bridges, who helped me graduate from high school because I wasn't one of the best students in the class, because my mother was trying to raise 5 of us with a 6th grade education. But it was those teachers. So I'll tell you, so not to answer your question, I'm employed by the elected school board of the Clark County. But I work for every single day for the children and the educators that I work alongside. That's my main focus. That continues to be my focus, and that will remain my focus until I'm told otherwise. So thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
Hi, this may be for Mr. VELLARDITA. Do you agree with the Secretary of State's opinion that the tax petition should remain on the 2022 ballot?
Absolutely not.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
You just heard from CCSD Superintendent Jesus Jara and other officials talk about tentative contract agreements with bargaining units, including the School Teachers Union. Now, they talked about providing more support for teachers facing litigation, legal support, along with more support for special education teachers. However, the main part of this conversation during their presser was about providing more health care for teachers and dealing with the medical backlog and being able to retain more teachers in the Clark County School District. We'll have much more for you on this story online at lvrj.com. That's our website. You can also check out our weekday newscast, 7 at 7 a.m. and p.m. Available on Roku, Apple TV, YouTube, all your streaming platforms. You can also download our RJ mobile app to get news alerts sent right to your phone. I'm Jen Ah. Thank you for joining us. We'll be seeing you at 7 tonight.
You've been watching breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.